The message arrived without origin, without signature, without mercy. It didn't travel through known channels. It invaded them. Every frequency, from low-orbit satellite chatter to deep space military relays, flickered, choked, and then fell silent as something else took control. In command centers across 1,000 worlds, alarms screamed and then died mid-wail, replaced by a cold, perfect stillness. Screens froze. Signals flattened. Even encrypted Dominion war networks, systems built to resist collapse under supernova-level interference, buckled as if they had never existed at all. Then a tone, low, steady, unnatural. It echoed through metal corridors, across neural implants, inside the skulls of those connected to the grid. Not heard, exactly, felt like pressure behind the eyes, like gravity shifting just enough to make breathing difficult. And then the words appeared. Not translated, not processed, understood. This is Earth. The phrase spread like a virus through consciousness itself. Officers froze mid-command. Pilots hovered over controls they suddenly couldn't trust. Artificial intelligences, beings that process thought at speeds beyond comprehension, paused. Some shut down entirely. No species introduced itself like that, not in open space. Not without protocol, lineage, or declaration of alliance. It wasn't just improper. It was wrong. A flicker of static crawled across the message, distorting the air, bending light on every display. For a brief, nauseating instant, reality seemed to stutter, as if something vast had brushed against it and moved on. Then the second line came, slower, heavier. You have been warned. Somewhere, deep in the neural archives of ancient empires, something stirred. Forgotten records, sealed classifications, fragments of fear that had no context left to cling to. But before any of it could be accessed, before any mind could fully grasp the implication, the final words arrived, each one deliberate, each one final. Leave now or perish. Silence followed, not the silence of empty space, but the suffocating, oppressive kind. The kind that presses against your chest and dares you to breathe too loudly. Across the galaxy, entire fleets drifted in stunned stillness. No one spoke. No one moved. Because everyone understood the same impossible truth at the same time. This wasn't a negotiation. This wasn't a bluff. And whatever had just spoken had already decided what would happen next. Commander Vale of the Varelian Dominion stood in the observation chamber, and for a long moment he simply watched the planet turn. Earth, a sphere of blues and greens suspended in the black ocean of space, deceptively serene, like a relic left behind by a civilization that had long since accepted its irrelevance. Clouds drifted lazily across continents. Night and day chased each other in slow rhythm. Cities flickered on the dark side like faint embers scattered across a forgotten battlefield. It looked harmless. That was the first thought that crossed Vale's mind. And like all dangerous thoughts, it came dressed as certainty. Behind him, the flagship Judicator hummed with restrained power. A cathedral of war carved from alloy and ambition. It carried the weight of Dominion doctrine. Efficiency, expansion, inevitability. Through reinforced transparent steel, Vale could see them, his fleet. Thousands of vessels arranged in disciplined orbital formation, their hulls reflecting starlight like sharpened blades waiting to fall. Entire civilizations had folded before less. And yet, the message still lingered, not in the speakers, not in the data feeds, but in the mind. That impossible transmission that had cut through every known layer of encryption, every shielded frequency, every classified command net, as if they were made of glass. This is Earth. You have been warned. Leave now, or perish. Vale's jaw tightened slightly. Not fear. Not yet. Something closer to irritation. A logical system refusing to align. Primitive worlds do not issue threats, he said quietly. No one responded. His bridge officers stood at their stations, tense in a way they would never admit. Some pretended to recheck readings. Others stared too long at empty holographic displays, as if waiting for them to explain what reality itself had failed to justify. Begin atmospheric descent. Vale ordered at last. His voice was calm, controlled, absolute. A pause. Then confirmation echoed through the bridge like a ritual response. Descent protocols engaged. The fleet began to move. In perfect synchronization, the forward assault wave detached from formation. Sleek warships shaped for domination rather than diplomacy. They angled toward Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, engines burning with calculated restraint. This was not invasion. Dominion doctrine insisted. It was assimilation, a civilized act, a necessary correction. Vale turned slightly, watching the descent unfold in the panoramic display. "You will observe," he said to no one in particular, "how quickly resistance collapses when faced with inevitability." But even as he spoke, something subtle shifted in the ship's systems. A flicker, a hesitation in sensor readings that lasted less than a heartbeat, but should not have existed at all. Vale noticed. Of course he did. His eyes narrowed. "Run a full-spectrum diagnostic on descent units." "Already in progress. Commander," an officer replied. Outside, the first wave crossed into Earth's upper atmosphere, and the universe did not respond correctly. No thermal signatures spiked. No expected resistance patterns formed. No atmospheric friction. Anomalies matched predictive models. Instead, the incoming ships simply continued, smooth, too smooth, as if the planet itself had chosen not to acknowledge them. Vale leaned forward slightly. The irritation in his chest tightened into something colder. "Status?" he asked. A pause too long. Then, "Commander!" The officer's voice faltered. "We are not receiving telemetry from Unit 1. Another pause. Or 2. Silence spread through the bridge like an infection. On the main display, the descending ships continued their approach. Perfect, unbroken, alive. And then one vanished. But as the first wave of ships entered Earth's atmosphere, something felt wrong. At first, it was subtle. So subtle that trained Dominion crews dismissed it as statistical noise. Instruments flickered by fractions of a percent. Atmospheric drag calculations recalibrated themselves without command input. Heat shields reported less resistance than physics allowed. It was the kind of anomaly that normally preceded system correction, not alarm. Yet correction never came. Inside the lead destroyer Karen Spear, Lieutenant Rex stared at the descending readouts with growing unease. The planet filled the forward viewport now, huge, beautiful, and unsettlingly quiet. No defensive satellites. No planetary shield grid. No visible countermeasures. Just clouds, oceans, continents bathed in daylight, like nothing in the universe had ever dared disturb them. "That's impossible," Rex muttered. "We should be seeing atmospheric turbulence at this entry angle." "Rerun atmospheric models," the captain ordered. "They match, sir," came the reply almost instantly. "But the live feed doesn't." That was when the first ship disappeared. Not exploded, not impacted, not even distorted by gravitational shear. It simply stopped existing in the telemetry stream, as if reality had deleted its record of it. A second ship followed less than a heartbeat later. Then a third. On the bridge, silence sharpened into disbelief. Officers leaned closer to their consoles, as if proximity could force logic to return. But the data refused to cooperate. No debris signatures. No energy discharge spikes. No gravitational ripple consistent with destruction. Just absence. "Report," the captain barked, voice rising for the first time. "Unit 1 and 3 are gone," Rex said slowly, his voice tight. "Unit 2 is also missing. Sir, they're not registering as destroyed. They're registering as..." He stopped because the system itself had no word for it. Outside the viewport, Earth's atmosphere remained calm, undisturbed, beautiful in a way that now felt deeply wrong. The remaining ships continued their descent in perfect formation, unaware or unwilling to acknowledge that something fundamental had shifted. On the flagship above, Vale watched the data cascade across the tactical display. Each loss registered as a clean line of nothingness, a subtraction so absolute it defied interpretation. "Jamming?" he asked sharply. "No signatures." "Stealth field?" "No emissions detected." "Commander, then what did we just lose?" No one answered, because every explanation required physics to behave consistently. And physics, for the first time in Dominion history, was refusing to participate. A faint tremor ran through the bridge as another ship vanished. Then another. The pattern was accelerating. Inside the descending formation, panic finally began to surface, not as chaos, but as confusion so deep it paralyzed instinct. Pilots checked proximity links. Engineers reran diagnostics mid-flight. AI cores attempted recalibration loops that never completed. And still, nothing struck them. No weapon fire. No energy surge. No visible cause. Just disappearance. Lieutenant Rex stared at the empty space on his screen, where an entire battle group had been seconds before. His hands hovered over controls he no longer trusted. "Captain," he whispered, barely audible now, "we're not being attacked." A pause. "Then what is it?" the captain demanded. Rex looked up at the planet filling their descent path. Blue, green, silent, and somewhere deep in his instincts, older than training, older than Dominion doctrine, something cold finally took shape. "We're being removed." "I have a 6. The stars disappeared. Not dimmed, not obscured, not lost behind interference or debris fields. They were simply gone. One moment. The Dominion fleet hung above Earth like a god of iron and fire, engines glowing against the curvature of the planet below. The next, space itself fractured with a silent, impossible absence. The star field beyond the fleet's rear flank blinked out, as if someone had taken a blade to the universe and scraped it clean. On every bridge across the Armada, confusion lasted exactly half a heartbeat. Then came panic. "Rear constellation feed is offline," someone shouted. No, it's not offline. It's..." Another officer froze, staring at the viewport. "It's gone. The stars are gone." Commander Vale felt the words before he understood them. A pressure change in the mind. A wrongness that crawled beneath thought itself. He turned sharply toward the rear observation arrays. Empty. Not darkness. Not void. Absence. As if that section of reality had never been written. Then the ships began to unravel. It started with a cruiser on the outer flank. No warning. No energy spike. No enemy contact. One moment it existed in full formation integrity. Armor plating reflecting distant starlight. Reactor core stable. Crew alive. The next moment, it broke apart like ash caught in reverse wind. But there were no explosions. No fragments drifting. No expanding cloud of debris. The vessel did not die. It unmade itself. Atoms separated cleanly, almost politely, as though following an instruction written into the fabric of existence. Matter dissolved into something thinner than radiation, something that could no longer be tracked by sensors designed to measure reality. Vale staggered back a step as alarms finally erupted across the bridge. Fleet integrity collapsing. Unknown spatial distortion expanding. Contact lost with outer battle groups. But even as the words poured in, they felt distant, delayed, like hearing a scream after the body had already fallen silent. The fracture was spreading. Ships caught at the edge of the distortion didn't fire weapons. They didn't attempt evasive maneuvers. Their systems simply failed to agree on what they were supposed to be. Hulls flickered between states of existence, solid, transparent, incomplete, like reality was trying and failing to render them correctly. Vale gripped the console hard enough to bend alloy. "Divert all power to jump drives," he ordered. "Jump calculations failing." An officer replied, voice cracking. "There's no consistent spatial grid to lock onto." Another ship vanished, then 10, then 100, and in the silence between each disappearance, something far worse emerged. Not sound, not energy, but presence, as if the void behind them was now aware of being observed. Vale looked toward the rear view again, and for a fraction of a second, just long enough to fracture certainty, he thought he saw something in the erased darkness. Not a weapon, not an armada, not even a shape, just an intelligence so vast it did not need form to assert itself. The realization hit him like a physical blow. This was an attack unfolding in space. Space itself was the attack surface, and Earth had not deployed a fleet. It had rewritten the battlefield. Vale opened a channel, his voice no longer commanding, only desperate. "Earth, we withdraw. Cease this, whatever this is." The words echoed to command bridge of the adjudicator, bouncing off steel and silence like something fragile being dropped into an abyss. For the first time since his induction into the Dominion fleet, Vale did not sound like an instrument of conquest. He sounded mortal. Around him, the bridge was no longer a place of order. Consoles flicker with incomplete data, half-rendered tactical maps, and sensor feeds that refused to agree on whether entire fleets still existed. Officers stood frozen between duty and disbelief, their instincts colliding with something they had never been trained to survive, an enemy without form, without trajectory, without even the courtesy of definition. Outside the viewport, what remained of the fleet drifted like dying embers in a darkening sea. Ships that had once represented absolute Dominion supremacy now blinked in and out of existence at the edge of perception, as if reality itself was forgetting how to hold them together. Vale gripped the console, knuckles pale against alien metal. We are withdrawing all units. Repeat. Full retreat authorization. We are disengaging from Earth space immediately. A pause. Not from his crew. From everything. Even the universe seemed to hesitate before acknowledging his command. Then Earth responded, but not through any channel Vale recognized. There was no transmission, no frequency spike, no energy signature. Instead, every display aboard every surviving ship across the fleet went white at once. Pure, absolute, featureless white. And in that white, something began to form. Not an image transmitted across space. A presence rendered inside perception itself. A human figure, standing in darkness that was not space, but something deeper, something like the concept of emptiness given shape. The figure did not move at first. It simply existed, as though existence was a choice it had made and could withdraw at any moment. Vale felt his breath lock in his throat. The human was not armored, not enhanced, not augmented by visible technology. There were no weapons, no command insignia, no display of status or rank, only stillness, and eyes that carried no emotion Vale could name from Dominion psychology archives. Not anger, not mercy, not pride, something older, something final. You were not invited, the figure said softly. The voice did not travel through speakers. It bypassed them entirely, embedding itself directly into thought. Every crew member on every surviving ship heard it in their own language, in their own understanding, without translation delay or distortion. Vale took a step forward despite himself. We are withdrawing, he said again, though it no longer felt like speaking to an enemy. We acknowledge your territory. We will not return. The human tilted its head slightly, a gesture so small it somehow felt heavier than planetary gravity. You were warned, it said, and for the first time, Vale understood that the warning had never been a threat. It had been mercy. Behind him, systems began to fail in reverse order. Not destruction this time, but correction. Engines disengaged without command. Weapons locked into safe state permanently. Navigation systems erased their own targeting memory. Entire fleets lost the ability to calculate Earth's coordinates as if the concept itself was being gently removed from cognition. One by one, ships stopped being war machines and started becoming vessels without purpose. Vale turned slowly toward the viewport, where the human figure still stood in impossible darkness. We surrender, he whispered, though the word felt inadequate against something so absolute. The figure did not respond immediately. Then, softly, there was never a war, and the white consumed everything again. Days later, Earth returned to silence, not the silence of aftermath, but the silence of continuation, as if nothing had ever interrupted it at all. Oceans still rolled against coastlines in steady rhythm. Cities still glowed beneath shifting night skies. Satellites still traced their patient arcs through orbit, unaware they had ever been part of something larger, something that could have ended them all in a breathless instant. No monuments rose to the encounter. No alarms remained. No global broadcast announced victory or survival, because there had been neither. Only correction. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in chambers never recorded on any public map, systems powered down one by one. Not destroyed, just dismissed. Ancient arrays that had never been named, never acknowledged, quietly folded back into dormancy as if they had completed a routine task. Above them, humanity went on living, unaware that anything had ever tried to arrive. In the void between galaxies, What remained of the Varelian dominion drifted in fractured silence. Ships that still functioned no longer behaved like instruments of war. Weapons refused targeting solutions that referenced Earth. Navigation cores blurred the coordinates whenever they attempted to calculate return trajectories. Even the idea of Earth itself seemed to resist being remembered clearly. Commander Vale stood alone in what remained of the Judicator's command deck. The bridge was intact. Too intact. No scorch marks. No hull breaches. No visible damage of any kind. Yet everything felt hollow, like a story that had been read so thoroughly it could no longer be recalled. Around him, his surviving crew moved in slow, uncertain motions. Not injured, not dead, just fundamentally changed in ways no medical scanner could quantify. Some stared at empty displays for hours, unable to remember what they were meant to look for. Others wrote reports that dissolved into incoherent symbols the moment they were saved. Vale tried to speak Earth's name once more, but the word refused to fully form in his mind, as if something inside him had been gently, precisely removed. No violence, no resistance, just absence. He turned toward the observation window. Beyond it, space stretched endlessly in all directions, familiar, structured, obedient, and yet now it felt cautious, as though even the stars had learned restraint. Somewhere out there, the fleet's remnants drifted in scattered formations, each ship carrying the same unspoken realization. They were still alive only because something had decided they were allowed to be. Vale closed his eyes, and for a brief moment, he remembered the warning. Not the words, not the transmission, but the feeling, a certainty so absolute it had bypassed fear and gone straight into understanding. Leave now or perish. He opened his eyes again and whispered into the emptiness of the bridge, not as a commander, not as a conqueror, but as something far smaller than either. What were you? No answer came, but far, far away, beyond charts, beyond maps, beyond even the concept of distance, Earth continued to spin in quiet daylight, unbothered, unchanged, unaware that the galaxy had once knocked on its door and been gently erased from the memory of ever having arrived.